Hey guys, and welcome back to the tutorial series on programming in the .NET Framework. Today we want to start coding a bit, but to do so I first want to introduce you to variables. You can imagine variables as some sort of containers. They can hold, for example, numeric values, text values, and many other things. Every variable can only contain a value of a certain data type. Since C# is a so-called type-safe language, we need to tell the compiler what data type our variable should be made of and what kind of value it should expect. There are quite a lot of data types, so I will just cover the most important ones. The first type I want to show you is the integer data type. So integer, also called int, can contain, as the name says, integer values like 1, 2, 3. And so on. An integer variable is often used to, for example, count the repetitions of some section of your code which you're looping through more than once. Okay, the next most important thing should be the string data type. A string variable can contain any combination of characters. For example, you wanted to store the word hello in a variable, you would use the string data type for that. Then we have the floating point numbers. There are actually 3 different data types you could use here. Those are float, double, and decimal. However, I will not go into detail what the differences are yet. I think we'll cover that in another video instead. The important thing you need to know right now is that you can store numbers with decimal places in any variables of those types. For example, 5.4. Okay, another really important data type is called Boolean, or simply bool. Boolean variables can only hold one of 2 values, which is true or false. Yeah, we will need that a lot as well. Okay, but now let's start writing some code. Open up your Visual Studio and then open up the project you created for the last video. Now, if you look at the code editor, you will see that there is some code already created for you. We will discuss what those things are exactly at some point, but for now let's just say that everything we write will go between this curly bracket right here opening and this one closing right here. Depending on the settings of your Visual Studio, those brackets might be placed slightly different. The opening one can also be placed in the next line, which is perfectly fine as it has absolutely no impact on our code, so you can just leave it as it is. Yeah. Okay, so let's declare our first variable. We do that by first typing the data type of our variable. Let's say int. And then the name we want our variable to have for addressing it later. So type int x and close the statement with a semicolon. Every line of code we write now needs to be closed by such a semicolon. That way the compiler knows when a statement ends and where the next one begins. Okay, so now we have an integer variable named x. We want to assign a value to it. Go to the next line and let's simply give it the value 5, like this. X equals 5 followed by semicolon. Okay, so since we're using a console application, we can print out stuff in a console window. So let's print out the value of x. To print things, we need to write console.writeLine followed by round brackets, and whatever we want to print out goes inside those brackets. In our case it's x, and also close it with a semicolon. Okay, that is basically it, and if you run the program right now by either clicking start over here or simply by hitting F5 on your keyboard, it will do nearly what we would expect, but not exactly, because once the program has finished doing what we told it to do, it no longer has a purpose in our world and simply closes itself. So to avoid that, we need to make our program expect some more stuff to happen. See, it simply pops up and shuts down again. So simply add console.readKey, round brackets and semicolon in the next line. This will make our program wait for any keystroke, and if we don't hit any key, it will keep waiting forever. That way we have the time to look at our output. So hit F5 again, and as you can see, it printed out the value of 5. Okay, so let's do some more stuff with our variable. Let's give it two friends called y and z, both of the same integer data type. Okay, we want y to equal 3, and let's say z equals x plus y. So just type that down like basic maths. If we now print out z instead of x, we should now see an 8. Hit F5, and yes, there it is. So, okay. Let's say next we want to print out a text. So let's declare a variable of the type string. Name it text. And let's just use a classic. Let's say text equals hello world. Okay. And remember, string is still delimited by those quotes. And yeah, it has to be double quotes because single quotes are made for another data type, which we will not be using right now. Okay, so if we now print out our text, hit F5, you can see it printed out hello world. Okay, for the floating point numbers, there is something to consider. If you want to use the double type, you can just write it down like we did with the integer values, like double d equals 5.4, and oh yeah, I think I wanted to explain that a little earlier. You declare a variable like that and assign it a value like that, but you can also shorten it up a bit by also assigning the value in the declaration. So you can say double d equals 5.4 and have it all in one line. Okay, so now that works perfectly fine. But if you now wanted to use a floating point variable, let's say float f equals 5.4, you will see that there is an error. That is because Visual Studio thinks that if you type it like that, it's a double value. To make it understand that it's a float value, you need to add an f in the end. Same thing goes for decimal. So 5.4, it will give us an error, and in this case you need to add an m. Okay. To make things complete, we also want to have a Boolean variable. Let's say bool whatever equals either true or false. Let's just say it's true, and if you print that out now, you will see that the value is true. Okay, I think that's it for variables for now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching and see you soon.